How's that for a little lip singing from me? Welcome everybody to another stream. Final day of the trial, it's on. Should really got something to drink. February 25th, 12:06, District Court Defendant Lobby number 2. Sorry, Edgeworth. I didn't mean to get you in trouble. Don't worry about it. This is my problem, not yours. Hope I'm not interrupting anything, pals. I guess I am. I'll come back later. Wait, Detective Gumshoe, what is it? You got a lot of nerve, pal, making a detective run all around while on duty. And on top of it, you call me here? I've seen people happier at funerals. I take it Oz having you run errands again. Let me tell you, this is the last time, pal. Here, she asked me to give you this to you if there was still a break in the trial today. Evidence law. Edgeworth was talking about this just the other day. You must know the 2 rules of evidence law. Rule number 1, no evidence shall be shown without the approval of the police department. Is that right, Mr. Wright? It seems so. You could at least study some evidence law, really. Chief Prosecutor also wanted me to give you this message. A message? She said, if you're planning to take him on, you're going to need this book. Him. Yes, I'll need to give this book a read-through. A thorough read. Consider taking on Satan. Doesn't look like the book that'll do you any good. Now, though, all that's left now is the Chief Prosecutor's sentence. That's where you're wrong, Detective. Huh? Haven't you figured it out yet? I am still sitting in that prosecutor's seat? Despite all these allegations being thrown down at me, Mr. Edgeworth, the real trial today hasn't begun yet. What else is there left to do? Your credibility has been ruined with forged evidence you are unaware of. Emma Skye found out she unwittingly caused a man's death. And now you're telling me you want to do more? You gotta be kidding me, pal. You're missing the point, Detective. Lana didn't murder Detective Goodman. She merely stuck a knife into his body. That means the real killer is still out there. What? And we're going to expose him, no matter what it takes. This case has hurt too many people. It's time to bring it to an end. February 25th, 12:52, District Court, Room number 9. Court will now reconvene for the trial of Miss Lana Skye. Mr. Edgeworth. Yes, Your Honor. The Inquiry Committee is planning to impose harsh penalties for your actions. Thank you for the news, Your Honor. Yes, well, normally this is where the prosecution calls forth a witness. But, this isn't easy to say. You see, there is some concern that you, Mr. Edgeworth, may have struck a bargain. You think I may have manipulated the witnesses? I didn't say that. It's just, you see, everyone has been talking and... Very well, Your Honor. I have a solution. Solution? That being the case, the prosecution will allow the defense to call for all further witnesses. What? But there's no precedent for what you're proposing. Hello, Alex. How are you? Undeniably, this is an unusual arrangement, but a very effective one. It would prove that I haven't struck any deals with the witnesses. Well, Mr. Wright, what do you say? Unbelievable. Doing good? Nice. Edgeworth has found a way to continue the trial. Very well. The defense accepts the prosecution's proposal. And it's settled. The defense may now call for the next witness. Mr. Wright? You do realize it's your last chance. If you call the wrong witness, the trial is as good as over. Defense calls. Time has finally come to bring out the real murderer. Alex Bustos to the stand. No work until Sunday. Nice. Damian Grant. Defense calls Damian Grant to the stand. Damian Grant? What does he have to do with anything?
I will send you to Jesus.
As the defense's partner 2 years ago, Mr. Grant has first-hand knowledge of the crime. I feel we should hear what he has to say about it. As luck would have it, he should still be in the courthouse. He would also be the least likely to have been manipulated by me in any way. Wouldn't you agree, Your Honor? True. Alright, bailiff. Escort Mr. Grant to the stand. Witness, please state your name and occupation. Was this some kind of practical joke? I was just on my way to lunch. Your name and occupation, sir. Worthy, are you sure you want to do this? Your name and occupation. So, you want to play hardball, eh? Please, Mr. Grant. Fine. My name is Damian Grant, and I am the acting chief of police. Now then, Mr. Grant, the court requests to hear your testimony. Oh, righto. What's with the Grimm's face? First, let's clear up this SL9 incident. Oh, you mean the time when Lana's sister murdered that prosecutor? Firstly, I think it's been made pretty clear already. There's still some things unaccounted for. Oh, like what? Like the role you played in all this. Son, either you are very brave or very foolish. Or both. You are aware, of course, that the police chief has all kinds of weapons at his disposal. Weapons? Sure, take my testimony for example. I don't have to give it if I don't want to. What? Is this true? I'm afraid so. The chief of police has the right to refuse to testify. Of course, such an action carries with it certain risks. Don't worry, I'm not here to hinder your trial. Just remember, if this turns out to be a bigger waste of time, don't say I didn't warn you. Very well, the witness may now begin his testimony. As I recall, Neil and I were questioning him that day. To make a long story short, we slipped up. That power outage didn't help either. When I went to my office, I found Lana there. She had already arranged the crime scene. As you can see, I had nothing to do with the forgery. Liar, liar, plants for hire. Him? He was lying on the floor unconscious. That's pants on fire, Patrick. When Emma sent Neil flying, it seemed Dark bumped his head. I see. Everything seems pretty clear-cut. If the police chief has the right to refuse to testify, then I better hit him hard and fast. It's the final statement. Like, he's bragging right there. I mean, the fact that he even put it in quotes is apparent. Like, that one's there to trick. Because the forgery makes it more specific. Arrange could mean anything, like you move furniture, like a bunch of stuff. But there's one thing that sticks out. The jar. You claim you have nothing to do with the forgery, but I'm afraid that is a claim you cannot back up. Explain yourself. Several pieces of evidence were found in your office. Take this jar, for example. That's that blue badger you showed us earlier? A piece of this jar was discovered in your safe. Not only that, but the evidence list I presented earlier was actually found inside your desk. It was found where? You see, Chief Grant, these articles of evidence uncovered in your office are both concrete proof that you also played a part in the illegal investigation. Chief Grant, what is the meaning of this? Oh, here's a defense attorney who may even rival Worthy. So you admit to it then? That you were involved in the forgery? Who, me? Or do you mean you? Me? Why would I have anything to do with that? Well, you were the one who snuck into my office when you found this evidence. Prosecutors aren't the only ones capable of forging evidence, you know. Defense attorneys can do so too. Isn't that right, Righto? However, Detective Gumshoe was present during the investigation. Worthy, my boy. Not even detectives are exempt from the law. Rest assured, Dick will receive his due punishment. What? What? If Detective Gumshoe's salary drops any further, he'll end up paying to work. Yes, well, in the light of Detective's presence, please give us your testimony regarding these pieces of evidence you found in the office and their relation to the forgery that took place at the crime scene. My. Kids these days no longer know how to put two and two together. Let's see. What was it now? A jar fragment and a list. For all I know, you could have planted them in my office. Anyway, you can't prove when those pieces of the evidence were discovered. If they were found after Dark was convicted, then they are worthless. There's no reason I participate in a forgery. Arrange the crime scene wouldn't help me out in either way. Huh. Yes, Your Honor. When investigating a crime scene, you should have been more careful to observe protocol. You do understand what I am, the police chief, right? There will be consequences. Oh, indeed, I believe I will press charges so you won't make the same mistake again. My apologies, Chief, but would you mind waiting until tomorrow for that? Today is, well, you know. Alrighty, Undy. In return, though, I know. That place, right? Huh? Or are these guys telepathic? See, here's the thing, though. He mentioned that he does... Gumshoe mentioned that he doesn't arrange scenes or whatever. Or press. Really, Chief Grant? At the very least, there is one very large benefit you've reaped. We're choosing. Reaped from all this. Oh, I wasn't aware. What is this benefit? That would be, of course, that would of course be the position you have, Chief of Police. Oh. The resolution of the SL9 incident secured your promotion to chief. That, in itself, is sufficient motive. Ho 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 ho. Oh, that's good. That's a good one. Huh? Do you really think I'm that incompetent? What do you mean? Even without that case, I was already in line to become the next chief. The resolution of the SL9 merely sped up the inevitable a little. Is that true, Edgeworth? Yes. He was going to be made chief anyway. Gah. Be careful pointing a finger, or you might wind up being the one pointed at. So that means there's only one possible motive for you to commit forgery. If you didn't do it for yourself, then you did it for someone else. Don't be silly, Worthy. You know me better than that. There are only 3 people I look out for. Me, myself, and I. There, it's out in the open now. Undy, would you mind if I change my testimony a little? By all means, please do. Wait a minute. Nothing in it for you. I'm sorry, but the only person I care about is yours truly. That girl, Lana's little sister, was it? If only you think I felt sorry for her, you better think again. You're right. You don't feel sorry for anyone. Be tough on crime and tough on people. That's how I was raised. You seem to be lax enough on yourself, though. Ho ho ho! That's a good one, Worthy. Could there have been something in it for him? Given his selfishness, would he help someone out? He did have an accomplice. True, you might not help out anyone for their sake, but if it would benefit you, you might decide to assist someone. Mr. Wright? It appears you're positively determined to betray the chief as a nice man who likes to lend people a hand. That's not what I mean. Very well. Then, who's this person you believe Chief Grant may help forge evidence? Take that! Chief Prosecutor Lana Skye? The defendant? I believe it's quite obvious in light of the circumstances. Emma Skye fell victim to an unfortunate series of events. Who would want to help her more than her own sister Lana? And for Chief Grant, he would also have a reason to help Lana if she asked him to. That reason, of course, is self-profit. Self-profit? What do you mean? After the SL9 incident was resolved, Lana was appointed to Chief Prosecutor at the Prosecutor's Office. The person who arranged this job change was you, Chief Grant. But how could he profit all of this? He would be able to use the Chief Prosecutor as his puppet. Essentially, he would acquire unchecked authority over all investigations. Do you mean to tell me that despite the Chief's formal appearance, he plays with puppets? Oh wait. You must mean puppets as in... You force someone. A minute, Chief. You assisted Lana Skye in forging evidence. Your motive to appoint her as Chief Prosecutor so you could control her. Righto, my boy, you have quite an imagination. Let me ask you something. What? Do you have any proof of this? That I controlled Lana? For example, is Lana testifying that I've done such a thing? Lana. She's keeping quiet to protect Emma. There's no way she'd testify against Grant. I'm afraid without any proof, this amounts to nothing more than mere conjecture. Unless that is also what happened in this incident. This incident? Oh, which one would that be? The one I'm talking about. The murder of Detective Bruce Goodman. The Chief Prosecutor has been acting strange throughout this entire trial. Almost as if someone has been controlling her. Worthy, you better watch your tongue. I wouldn't want you to get hurt. Just what do you mean? What he means, Your Honor, is that Chief Grant is involved in the murder of Detective Goodman. Not only that, but the Chief is now making Lana take the rap to cover up his involvement. What? Order, I said order. Mr. Wright, you can't be serious. Huh? This is an effort to the highest ranking officer in our law enforcement agency to accuse the chief of police of blackmail and murder? That's impossible. Your Honor, I was merely reiterating what Mr. Edgeworth said in easier to understand language. It's too late, Mr. Wright. There's no turning back for us now. Looks like he's the one who decided to go through with this. Can you prove this, Mr. Wright? That the Chief of Police, a high-ranking officer of the law, is involved in this murder? Good question. Regardless of his rank or title, Chief Grant is still a man. The question is he a criminal? I believe the evidence will tell. I see. Alright then, let's see what Mr. Wright's got. And it better be good. Show us evidence that ties Chief Grant to the murder of Detective Goodman. No. No, no. No. This is the ID card list. Yes, the one who shows the entrance to the evidence room on the day of the crime. There was one ID on the list we couldn't determine of the owner yesterday. 777777. Sorry, but that's no way you prove that's my card number. It's yours. What? How do you know that? The safe in Chief Grant's office requires a code to open. A 7-digit code. 7-digit? You don't mean... I'm afraid so, Your Honor. The code was 77777777. The same as the remaining ID number card on this list. Chief Grant, you entered the evidence room on the day of the crime. Order, order. Chief Grant, what do you have to say? Nothing. The defense's search of my office was in violation of regulation. And I will demand Mr. Wright be punished to the maximum extent of the law. Right now, this court demands an explanation from you about the use of this ID card. Chief Grant, so you admit it. You entered the evidence room on the day of the crime? What about it? I'm chief of police. Whatever it's the evidence room or the bathroom, what's the difference? I can go anywhere I want. Tell me, when you entered the room, were you alone? I always go to the bathroom alone, as I do the evidence room. Detective Goodman wouldn't have happened to be there with you that day, would he? Of course not. Why would he be? I haven't seen him in days. You haven't seen him in days, Chief Grant? I'm afraid you just undone yourself. On that day, you had to have met Detective Goodman. What do you mean? This trial's purpose is to determine Lana Sky's guilt. No, it isn't, Your Honor. This trial's purpose is to determine the truth. If Chief Grant met the victim on the day of the crime, then we need to determine one thing. What transpired during that meeting? In that case, Mr. Wright, I'm going to have to ask you for evidence. Shows the proof that the victim went to meet Chief Grant on the day of the crime. Ooh. No, there's got to be something more solid than this. On that day, Detective Goodman had to go see Chief Grant. Sorry to interrupt your mumbling, but the court is waiting. Oops. Why don't you come meet with me tomorrow? Perhaps we could write up your letter of termination. Regardless, you did see Detective Goodman that day. Lost item report? Detective Goodman lost his ID card on the day of the crime. Or to be more accurate, Chief Marshall stole it. So Detective Goodman filed out a lost item report. He would have to have given that report to the Chief of Police. Yet you're in possession of the report, which means you can't be sure he filed it. He filed it. How do I know this, you ask? Because he needed to enter the evidence room that day. He needed to? Yes, to to transfer the evidence out. Oh! Detective Goodman took the form to you, Chief Grant. Then, you accompanied the detective to the evidence room. I accompanied him? There's no other way the murderer and Detective Goodman could have entered the room. Hold on, let me guess what you're going to say next. I, the Chief of Police, murdered poor Goodman. Exactly. But wait! The Chief didn't necessarily need to accompany him to the evidence room. He could have just lent him his ID card. Yes. Now that you mention it, I believe I might have done something of the sort.
Objection!
Sorry, but that's not possible. According to the record, your card was only used once. Yet, you showed us your ID card earlier. If you had recently lent it to Detective Goodman, it would have been found on his body. No! No! Chief Grant, you didn't! The murder was most likely a spur-of-the-moment crime, for no one in their right mind would choose the chief of police, would choose the police department as a place to commit murder. After the murder, you contacted Lana at the prosecutor's office. Why? To dispose of Detective Goodman's body, of course. You're forgetting, Mr. Wright, that the victim's body was discovered in the prosecutor's parking lot. How did he manage to move it there? I was at the police department the entire day, you know. And anyone's aware that Lana Skye stayed at the prosecutor's office after the ceremony. Everyone except me, it seems. Still, you're the chief of police. You have the entire police force at your disposal. So you think I just ordered an officer to do it? Hey, you, take this dead body over to the prosecution office. I don't think so. Chief Grant, you left all the evidence we need to prove how you moved the body to the prosecutor's office.
Huh?
Let the dog open the door. And all the time, I thought it was a useless clue, just taking up space. How would the chief move the body? Mr. Wright, show us the evidence. To move the victim's body, Chief Grant used... Maybe he used Edgeworth's car. We need the parking ticket. This is how he moved Detective Goodman's body. A parking stub? Miles Edgeworth. You mean... The body was found in the trunk of Mr. Edgeworth's car. I think it's obvious what had happened. The body was moved by car. You mean I carried the victim's body? Precisely so. But wait, even you know, I didn't plan on returning to my office after the ceremony finished that day. But you didn't return. Tell me why. I was asked to go by the chief of police, by Chief Grant, no less. He told me he wanted to keep it here in the prosecutor's office. In any case, on the day of the stabbing, I brought this back here. So you see, what what you really were taking to the prosecutor's office wasn't a screwdriver. It was the victim's body in your trunk. Detective Goodman's body was carried in the trunk of Mr. Edgeworth's car? Yes, unless of course you have another explanation, Chief. Why else would you have asked Mr. Edgeworth to transport evidence from a closed case? There's only one plausible explanation. Transport the body to your accomplice, Miss Lana Skye. Order, what's going on here? Is there no room for rebuttal to the defense's outrageous accusations? Think back to the photograph Miss Starr took at the prosecutor's office. This was not a photograph of the body being stuffed in the trunk to be taken away. It was exactly the opposite. It is a photo of the body being taken from the trunk. Chief Grant, please say something. I believe... Your time's up? My time's up? Sorry, Rito, but I have a lunch with the District Attorney General after this. We have to get going if we're going to make it in time for the early bird special. But the cross-examination isn't finished yet. Remember what I told you earlier. The Chief of Police has all kinds of weapons at his disposal. Weapons? With the right to refuse to testify? I'm invoking that right now. What? That is not a right to be casually invoked. There are certain risks to be considered. So you're going to just run away after all this? Run away? Don't make me laugh, Worthy. I stabbed old Goodman. That's what you're saying, right? But if I had any conclusive evidence, you would have presented it by now. Well, You think I had Lana dispose of the body? If so, then show your proof and get on with it. I'll say it again, Mr. Wright. David Grant is current Chief of Police. This court will not tolerate any accusations against him without concrete proof. Well, Mr. Wright, Your Honor, do you have concrete proof? Proof that Chief Grant murdered Detective Goodman and made Miss Skye dispose of this body? Do I have any concrete proof? It's no use showing evidence. I'm not even sure of myself. Your Honor, at present, I have no conclusive evidence. See, Yundi. In that case, this court is forced to penalize you for your allegations against the Chief. What? Here's a tip. Never gamble what you can't afford to lose, righto? It seems Lady Luck was on my side again today. Okay, Yundi, I'll leave the rest to you. I warned you earlier, Mr. Wright. This is an affront to senior officer in our nation's law enforcement agency. What? Objection! Lady Luck, Maybe we should have a word with her. Mr. Edgeworth, what do you mean? There's one lady who knows the real truth behind the trial. We haven't yet had the honor of hearing her testimony. A lady who knows the truth. Another witness? In the absence of conclusive evidence, the only other method is proof is testimony. But Chief Grant has invoked his right to refuse to testify. But there's still someone else. One more witness who can answer all the questions. Raised in the trial, someone right in this very room. Mr. Edgeworth, who is this person? Why are you asking me, Your Honor? Have you forgotten? The defense is the one calling the witnesses today. Mr. Wright, does a witness exist? She may not be willing to tell the truth, but we can't just stop now. Yes, Your Honor. The defense calls forth. We heard her briefly. There's only one person who hasn't gone. The defendant, Miss Lana Sky. She was in the underground parking lot at 5:15 on February 21st. Her task to dispose of the victim's body. Accordance with a certain someone's orders. Mr. Edgeworth? The prosecution has no objections, Your Honor. Very well. The court will now take its final recess for the day. In 15 minutes, we will reconvene to hear the defense's testimony. This court is now in Hold on! Huh? Chief Grant, I thought you were going to eat. Listen good, Lana. He's talking to Lana? I don't think you need me to tell you this, but if you accept Mr. Wright's claims, there will be terrible consequences. That's right. Your sister will be found guilty for Neil Marshall's murder. This isn't good. Of course, you never support such an outrageous claim, right? Just something to think about. Alright then. I've got a lunch date to meet. Okay, if there aren't any further objections, this court is now in recess.